Shannon Myers always hated driving at night, but the road didn't care much about her preferences. Highway 87 stretched out before her in a long, endless ribbon of dark, no other cars, no towns for miles, just the howl of the Montana wind scraping across the asphalt like fingernails on a coffin lid. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel of her old blue Tacoma, her knuckles going pale. The tank was nearly empty. The cold was worsening. And the nearest open station was supposed to be long past her by now. That's what the GPS said, anyway. That's what her phone said. But both had lost signal an hour ago. She had been running on fumes and wishful thinking since then. The road signs were old, sun-bleached, cracked. Some had bullet holes. Others were so weather-worn they looked like someone had clawed at them with something angry, something desperate. She tried not to focus on that. Tried not to imagine them being scratched up from the inside. The wind screamed against the truck windows. Snow, thin as flour, started drifting through the beams of her headlights. Not enough to build a storm, but enough to swallow distance, blur edges, and distort depth perception. Then she saw a sign she hadn't expected. Exit 34, Universal Truck Stop, Fuel, Food, Rest. The sign creaked as she passed it, swinging slightly though there was no breeze now. Shannon blinked. She didn't remember seeing any truck stop on the map. She'd driven this stretch before, plenty of times. There was nothing here. But the needle of her fuel gauge was buried under the red. Okay, she whispered to herself. Either it's a miracle or a trap. And honestly, I'm too cold to care. She turned off the highway. The exit ramp dropped sharply downward into a valley of darker shadows. At first she thought it was because of the moon slipping behind a cloud. Then she realized there was no moon. Not anymore. The sky had gone a kind of ink black, thick and suffocating. Her headlights struggled to cut through it. Down below, the truck stop's neon sign flickered like a dying firefly. University RLRCKSTP. Half the letters were out. Half were barely alive. But there was light. And fuel. And warmth. She pulled in. The place was bigger than she expected. Much bigger. The forecourt had at least 10 pumps, all old-fashioned, the analog kind with rolling number wheels instead of LED screens. The station building was wedged between a long diner with fogged-up windows and a squat, motel-like annex that reminded her of a converted storage unit. A single semi sat parked near the far edge of the lot. All its running lights were on, bright amber. The engine wasn't running, though. Its headlights pointed directly at her. A shiver crept up her spine. Shannon stepped out, hugging her jacket close. The cold hit her immediately, sharp, metallic, unnatural. It felt like stepping into a freezer filled with teeth. Her first breath crystallized before her eyes. Damn, she muttered. Feels like -20. She shoved her hands in her pockets and walked to the nearest pump. There were no card readers, only a slot for cash and a rust-stained call button labeled attendant. She pressed it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a voice crackled through the rusty speaker. Coming. Just that. Just one word. But the voice didn't sound human. Not entirely. It sounded delayed, like someone speaking through water, with a static twist at the edges. She stepped back as the station door creaked open. A man shuffled out, if man was the right word. He was tall, too tall, his limbs slightly longer than they should have been, wrapped in a jacket that looked borrowed, stretched tight at the seams. His head was down, face hidden under a brimmed cap that shadowed everything but his chin. Cold night, he rasped. Yeah, Shannon answered, trying not to stare. Can I just get a fill-up, I only have a 20 on me. He nodded slowly, like he was considering each motion before he committed to it. You'll get what you need, he said. The way he said it made her skin crawl. He reached for the pump handle. Then he stopped abruptly, head tilting just slightly, the way a dog reacts to a sound no one else hears. You're not from here. It didn't sound like a question. No, she said. Just passing through. Good, he muttered. Don't be from here. Don't stay long. Before she could respond, he jammed the handle into her tank and turned the pump on. The rolling numbers clicked steadily, a mechanical rhythm that echoed too loud in the empty night. Shannon looked around again. The semi at the far end still had its headlights pointed at her. The cab was pitch black behind the glass. No silhouettes. No driver. Nothing. Just two headlights staring through her like eyes. The men followed her gaze. He's been here a while, he said. Who? The attendant didn't answer. Or maybe he didn't hear. He just kept pumping. The cold deepened, as if the temperature had dropped another 20 degrees. Shannon shivered. Is your heat working inside? I'd like to warm up before I hit the road. The attendant's jaw tightened. You can come inside, he said quietly. But you don't stay. You don't talk to anything that talks to you first. And don't eat the pie. The pie. He didn't explain. He finished filling her tank, took her 20 without counting it, and then said, I'll keep him out here while you warm up. Keep who out? He walked away, already turning back toward the pump house. Shannon watched him move, jerky, uneven, like he was learning how legs worked. He stepped into the light, then disappeared into the shadows as if swallowed whole. A cold wind whipped through the lot. The semi's headlights flickered once, like a blink. Shannon stepped back toward her truck. Her breath came fast, visible in huge white plumes. Just go inside. Warm up. Get out. She walked to the door of the station and pulled. It stuck. For a moment, she thought it was locked. Then it groaned open. A wave of warm, stale air hit her, like a heater that had been running way too long in a sealed room. It smelled faintly of old coffee, disinfectant, and something sweet, too sweet, like rotting syrup. She stepped inside. The interior of Universal Truck Stop looked like it hadn't been updated since the early 1980s. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, some flickering rapidly enough to give the entire store a strobe effect. The aisles were filled with dusty shelves of expired snacks, old trucker hats, and souvenirs from towns she'd never heard of. A bell above the door chimed again behind her, even though the door didn't move. Shannon froze. Hello, she called out. Her voice echoed strangely, bouncing around the room like the walls were farther apart on the inside than they were on the outside. Something shifted at the back of the store. She saw movement through the corner of her eye, a flash of a figure walking between aisles. She turned. Nothing. Then, from behind the counter, a woman's voice called. Coffee's fresh, honey. Warm yourself up. Warm relief washed through Shannon's chest. Another human. Maybe she could ask about directions, about the creepy guy outside, about anything to make this place feel normal. She approached the counter. The woman stood with her back to Shannon, wearing a faded truck stop uniform. Her hair was pinned up under a retro diner cap. She seemed normal enough, normal shape, normal height, normal posture. But something was off. Thanks, Shannon said. Cold enough to freeze eyelashes off out there. The woman didn't laugh. Didn't respond at all. Just stood still. Ah, where's your heater? It feels like you've had it running for hours. Still no answer. Shannon took a step closer. Ma'am. The woman turned. Slowly. Too slowly. Her face wasn't wrong exactly, it was just empty. A blank expression stretched too wide. Eyes that didn't blink enough. A smile that didn't match the muscles in her cheeks. Coffee's fresh, honey, she repeated. Shannon's stomach plunged. It was the exact same tone. Exact same cadence. A script. She swallowed. Right. I'll help myself. Coffee's fresh, honey. Okay, Shannon whispered. I heard you. The woman didn't move again. She just kept smiling, staring straight ahead at nothing. Shannon backed away. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She turned toward the coffee station. The pot was full, too full, like it had been freshly brewed. But the burner beneath it was off. No smell. No steam. The coffee looked thick, almost syrupy. A shadow rippled behind her in the reflection of the coffee urn. Shannon spun, fast. The aisle behind her was empty. She closed her eyes and took a slow breath. Get warm. Leave. Don't ask questions. But when she looked up, she saw something that made her skin turn to ice. A mirror mounted on the wall behind the counter. The blank-faced woman was still smiling. But in the mirror, she wasn't. In the reflection, the woman's mouth was closed. Her eyes were wide, terrified. And she was mouthing something. Shannon stepped closer. The reflected woman mouthed the words again. Don't turn around. Shannon froze. Her lungs turned to stone. She felt breath, someone else's breath, on the back of her neck. The bell above the door chimed again. But no one had entered. The reflected woman's mouth moved again, faster, more frantic. Don't. Turn. Around. The air behind Shannon shifted, heavy and hot. Something was standing inches from her. Slowly, painfully slowly. Shannon lifted her eyes to the mirror. Behind her was. Shannon didn't want to look. Every instinct screamed at her to keep her eyes locked on the mirror, to pretend she saw nothing, to pretend the heat behind her neck was just faulty ventilation and not a breath that smelled like dust and soil and something long dead. But humans look. Humans always look. And the reflection forced her to see. Behind her stood a figure, but not in any way a person should stand. Its body was tall, stretched unnaturally thin, bent forward at the waist like it was trying to fold itself in half. Its limbs hung too long, fingers ending in narrow, claw-like tips that twitched, as though impatient. Its head. God. Its head rested inches above her shoulder, cocked at an unnatural angle. The face was blurry, as though the mirror couldn't quite resolve what it looked like. No eyes. No mouth. Just a fog of shifting, writhing shadows where features should be. But she felt its attention. The warm breath on her neck grew hotter. The woman in the mirror, the trapped reflection, made the shape of one last word. Run. Shannon didn't turn. She lunged. Her body moved before thought caught up, diving forward, nearly knocking over a rotating rack of trucker postcards. Something behind her hissed, a wet, rattling sound like steam escaping a rusted pipe. Shannon didn't look back. She sprinted toward the front door. The fluorescent lights flickered violently. The bell chimed. Ching 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 ching. Over and over, rapid, frantic, like someone was shaking it from all sides. The front door wouldn't budge. No. Shannon slammed her shoulder against it. Come on, come on. Across the store, Alls rattled as something scraped along the floor. A dragging, metallic sound. Like claws trailing against tile. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She yanked the handle again, harder. The door flew open so suddenly she stumbled forward into the freezing night. The air outside hit her like a wall, but it was clean air, cold, but real. She stumbled a few more steps before daring to turn around. The store interior looked normal now. Too normal. Shelves still. Light steady. No blank-faced cashier. No nightmare creature. No movement at all. She slammed the door shut and backed away. Her breath came out in ragged bursts, pluming in the frigid air. She needed to leave. Now. Forget warming up. Forget everything. Just get back in the truck and... The semi's headlights were still pointed directly at her. But now, they were closer. She had parked nowhere near that thing. It must have moved. It had moved. The long, gleaming chrome grille now reflected her figure in a distorted, funhouse shape. Inside the cab, the darkness seemed even deeper. Like something was sitting inside, swallowing the light whole. Shannon tore her gaze away and hurried toward her Tacoma. The keys shook in her hands as she tried to unlock the door. Come on. Come on. Please. She jammed the key into the lock. A voice whispered behind her. Ma'am. Shannon whipped around, adrenaline ready to burst through her skin. The attendant stood under the flickering overhang lights, hands in his pockets, head down. Same stretched limbs. Same oversized jacket. But now, something else. He was trembling. Ma'am, he said again, you weren't supposed to go inside. Shannon stared. What the hell is in there? What is this place? The attendant's chin jerked upward just slightly, like the question had physically tugged his face. You need to leave, he whispered. Right now. I'm trying. Shannon snapped, gesturing toward her truck. Her voice bordered on hysteria. Everything here is insane. That store, something was in there. Something was. He flinched at the word something. You should not talk about it out loud, he said, voice shaking. It listens. Her skin prickled with cold. Who listens? His eyes darted, not to her, not to the building, but toward the semi. Shannon swallowed hard. The driver. The attendant shuddered violently, a twitch running down his entire body like a seizure. He isn't a driver. Not anymore. The semi's headlights dimmed for a moment, then brightened, as though reacting. Don't look at it, the attendant hissed. Shannon tore her gaze away, heart hammering. Listen, she said, trying to force calm she didn't feel, I need to go. Just let me leave. Please. You can, he whispered. If you don't turn around again. If you don't talk to anything. If you don't stop until you're 10 miles away. He stepped closer. His movements were still wrong, like his joints didn't bend the way normal human joints were supposed to, but his voice now sounded frightened. Do not stay here. Not one more minute. Then tell me, why are you here? Shannon asked. The attendant's mouth opened, then closed sharply, as though an invisible hand had snapped it shut. His breathing grew erratic, chest heaving. I can't, he rasped. It won't let me. Shannon felt a pulse of cold sweep across the lot. The semi's headlights brightened again. A low, melodic hum vibrated through the ground, like the hum of a massive engine, except the semi wasn't running. You've been noticed, the attendant whispered. Shannon's legs went weak. Go. He pointed at her truck without looking up. Shannon didn't argue. She fumbled with the lock again, finally wrenching the door open. Her hands were numb with fear, but she managed to climb in and slam the door. The moment the door shut, her windshield fogged completely over. With breath that wasn't hers. Long, streaky marks dragged across the glass from the inside. Except she was inside. And she was alone. A sharp tap sounded on the driver's window. Tap. Tap. Tap tap tap. Shannon froze, knowing who she would see if she turned. The attendant. But maybe not really him anymore. His voice came through the glass, muffled and brittle. Drive, ma'am. She turned the key. The Tacoma sputtered, choked, then roared to life. The tapping grew more frantic. Drive before he comes. Before he comes. Her heart lurched. The semi's headlights flared white, flooding the lot. Every shadow turned to ink, every surface glowing with a sickly brightness. Shannon slammed her truck into reverse. The moment she moved, the tapping stopped. The attendant stood still now. Completely still. Face upturned. Limbs slack. Like a puppet that had just had its strings cut. Shannon didn't wait to see more. She whipped the truck around the pumps, tires screeching against the cracked pavement. She sped toward the exit ramp that led back up to the highway. Something moved in her rearview mirror. The semi. Its headlights glowed brighter, brighter, brighter. And then the engine roared to life. A sound like thunder splitting open the night. Shannon's blood turned to ice. No, no, no. She floored it, her Tacoma's engine screaming in protest as it fought against the steep incline of the exit ramp. Behind her, the semi surged forward, tearing through the lot with impossible speed. Its horn blared, a deafening, distorted sound that grew higher and sharper, warping into something that wasn't mechanical at all. Shannon gripped the wheel so hard her fingers went numb. The truck fishtailed on the icy ramp. She corrected hard, her tires spitting snow and gravel. The semi's horn wailed again. Closer. Too close. She hit the top of the ramp. The highway stretched out before her like salvation. And then, her headlights illuminated something standing dead center in the road. A woman. The cashier. Smiling her empty smile. Move. Shannon screamed even though the woman clearly wouldn't. She jerked the wheel. Her Tacoma spun sideways, skidding hard across the blacktop. The semi barreled up the ramp behind her like a charging animal. Shannon lost control. The Tacoma flipped. Once. Twice. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. Her body lifted. Her head slammed. And everything went black. She drifted back to consciousness slowly. Cold seeped into her bones. A steady dripping filled her ears. Something warm trickled down her forehead, blood. She was upside down. The Tacoma lay on its roof in a ditch, the windshield shattered, the cabin crushed inward around her. Her seatbelt groaned under her weight. Shannon gasped, breath sharp and ragged. Then she heard it. A distant engine. Growing louder. Coming down the highway. No. Not coming. Searching. The semi. She tried to unbuckle herself, but the latch was jammed. Her breath came faster. She clawed at it, hands shaking violently. Come on, come on. The engine noise deepened. Closer. She could see faint light passing over the trees above her, headlights moving slow, hunting. Finally, the buckle snapped open and she fell onto the roof of the cab with a harsh thud. Her shoulder screamed in pain. She crawled out through the shattered passenger window, cutting her hands on broken glass. The headlights swung toward her. They'd found her. Shannon staggered into the trees, branches slashing her face as she pushed deeper into the dark forest. Behind her, the semi's horn wailed again. But now the sound wasn't a horn. It was laughter. Something old. Something hungry. Something that had been waiting a very, very long time. Shannon ran until her lungs burned and her legs buckled. But the laughter followed. Always just behind her. Always closer than it should be. Shannon didn't remember falling. 1 second she was stumbling through branches so thick they scratched her face, the next she was on the frozen ground, cheek pressed into dead pine needles, breath clouding the air in weak puffs. Her ears rang. Her ribs burned when she inhaled. But she could still hear it. The laughter. It drifted through the trees in soft, rolling echoes, too far, too close, too everywhere. It reverberated inside her skull like she was the instrument it chose to play. Her vision cleared enough to make out the shapes of towering pines around her. Except, she wasn't familiar with this area. She'd driven Highway 87 dozens of times, and there simply weren't forests this dense near that stretch. Montana had trees, sure. But not this. Not a wall of trunks so tall they vanished into darkness 20 feet above. Not branches that arched inward like skeletal arms. Not trees that looked like they were leaning closer each time she blinked. She forced herself to sit upright. Pain stabbed her ribs, but adrenaline dulled it. The semi's headlights scanned the forest edge far behind her, illuminating trunks briefly before darkness swallowed everything again. They moved slow, deliberate. Hunting. Searching. She crouched low and crawled deeper between the trees. The laughter faded. But a new sound rose to replace it. Whispers. They filtered through the woods like a breeze, except there was no breeze. The air was completely still. Dead. Heavy as wet wool. At first, the whispers sounded like whine through branches. Then, as her ears adjusted, she began to hear words beneath the noise. Wrong way. Turn back. He sees you. He likes the ones who run. Shannon's breath caught. She pressed her back against a tree trunk and closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. Not real, she whispered. Just concussion hallucinations. Just fear. A branch cracked nearby. Her eyes snapped open. Something moved between the trunks. A shape darker than the darkness around it. A figure stepping silently across the forest floor. Not the semi. Not the attendant. Something else. Shannon scrambled backwards, pushing herself with her heels until her back slammed into another tree. Bark scraped her jacket. The shape drifted closer. No footsteps. No weight. It looked like a person, but not. Its limbs were too long. Its head too low. Its posture too broken. It moved in slow, floating glides, as if its feet never touched the ground at all. Its outline flickered, like a malfunctioning shadow. Then another shape appeared behind it. And another. And another. 4 shadow figures slipped between the trees, surrounding her on 3 sides. Their voices joined the whispers of the forest. Lost. She shouldn't be here. He will come. Run, little light, run. A cold so sharp it felt like needles sank into her bones. Shannon staggered to her feet, chest burning, and bolted in the only direction still open. Her boots slammed the ground, kicking up dirt and snow. Branches clawed at her skin. She didn't care, she just ran. But the forest didn't behave like a forest. The trees shifted. When she tried to run straight, the path curved. When she turned left, the trees moved closer. It was like running through a maze made of living wood. And the shadows followed. Not fast. Not urgent. Just patient. A sound rolled across the forest, something massive shifting, groaning, breathing. The semi. Its horn blared once, low and distant. The forest vibrated in response. Leaves shook without wind. Pine needles rained down around her. The shadows behind her murmured. He comes. Shannon stumbled downhill, sliding in loose soil. She tumbled into a shallow ravine and hit the bottom hard. The impact knocked the air out of her lungs. Above her, the giant headlights swept across the tops of the trees like a lighthouse beam. She pressed herself flat against the ravine floor. A moment later, the headlights froze. They were pointing directly at her. Except the semi was nowhere near her. There were no roads here. No clearings. Yet the lights were here. Behind the trees. Behind the darkness. As if the semi wasn't driving through the woods. But the woods were unfolding around it. The ground rumbled. Something enormous shifted downhill. The shadows hissed. He found her. She shines too bright. He loves the bright ones. Shannon forced herself up, every muscle screaming. Then she heard it. A voice. Female. Weak. Familiar. Help, help me. Shannon spun toward the sound. It came from the east of the ravine, deeper into the forest. She hesitated. Whispers filled the air again. No, not that way. Trap. She knows not to listen. But the voice cried out again. Please, don't leave me here. Shannon swallowed. Hello. Who is that? She called. The woods went still. Then a soft reply came. Shannon, help me. Her blood froze. She never said her name. Where are you? She asked cautiously. Here, the voice answered. I'm hurt, please come. Shannon stepped carefully up the other side of the ravine. Keep talking so I can find you. Here. 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 The voice multiplied. Echoing through the trees. Calling from everywhere. Shannon. Help me. Shannon. A wave of cold dread washed over her. Not a real person. Not someone hurt. It. The forest erupted with a monstrous shudder. Light, impossible, blinding white light, burst through the trees in a narrow beam, slicing between trunks like a spotlight. The semi's headlights. The semi was here. Right here. In the middle of the woods. The ground trembled as its engine rumbled closer. Shannon backed away as the beam of light moved across the forest floor, searching. The shadows hissed in fear and melted backward into the trees. He sees the bright ones. The living ones. Run. She didn't need to be told twice. She turned and sprinted through the trees, ignoring branches that whipped across her face. The ground shook behind her as something immense plowed through the woods, too fast, too heavy, too unstoppable. The horn blared again. Close. Shannon tripped over a fallen log and rolled down another slope. She crashed through brittle brush and burst into a clearing. The trees around it formed a perfect circle. A circle too round to be natural. Too exact. Too deliberate. In the center of the clearing was a building. Her breath caught. No. Not possible. But there it was. Universal Truck Stop. The exact same building. Same flickering neon. Same dented metal siding. Same shape, same angles, same everything. Except now it sat in the dead center of the forest. The store lights flickered behind the fogged windows. The door swung open with a sharp creak. And the same blank-faced woman stepped out, her smile perfect and wrong. "You forgot your coffee, honey." Shannon stumbled backward. No, this isn't real, this can't. The forest exploded behind her. Trees splintered as something bulldozed through them. Headlights flared. The horn shrieked. The laughter rose again. Shannon ran toward the building not out of choice but desperation. The blank-faced woman didn't move from the doorway. She just said, "Coffee's fresh." Shannon shoved past her. The woman didn't react. Inside the store, things were different again. Worse. The shelves were gone. Replaced by a long, narrow hallway that stretched far deeper than the building's footprint. Too deep. The flickering light strobed along the walls. Behind her, something slammed into the ground outside hard enough to shake the building. Shannon didn't look back. She plunged down the hallway. As she ran, she heard doors slam shut behind her one by one. Bang. 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 As though the truck stop itself was sealing her inside. She reached the end of the hall. A door with peeling white paint. No knob. Just a sign. Employees only. Behind it, she heard something breathing. Slow. Deep. Hungry. Shannon stepped back. No. I'm not going in there. But the hallway behind her was dark now, pitch black, except for a growing pair of lights shining from the far end. Headlights. They were in the hallway. Coming toward her. Laughing. Shannon pushed against the white door. It didn't budge. She pushed harder, shoulder slamming into the wood. Nothing. Headlights grew brighter behind her, illuminating the walls with sickly white brilliance. The laughter rose. Closer. Closer. She threw herself against the door again. This time it cracked. Again. Crack. Again. The door burst open and she fell through it. Landing on cold tile. She scrambled to her feet. And froze. It wasn't a room. It was a stairwell. A stairwell descending into total darkness. A whisper drifted up from below. Welcome back. Shannon didn't know where to go. Up here was death. Down there was something else. Something worse. But she heard the semi's horn behind her again. It made the choice for her. She ran down the stairs. Into the dark. Shannon wasn't sure when she finally fell asleep. She remembered staring at the dim ceiling of her sleeper cab, listening to the faint electric hum from the dying LED lights on the edge of the lot, wondering if they would flicker in Morse code again. She remembered replaying the sheriff's voice message until she convinced herself it didn't sound like him at all, even though she knew it was his voice, just wrong somehow, as if the voice had been scraped out of him, hollowed, then put back in. She remembered shutting her eyes. Then she remembered running. Not physically, at least she didn't think so, but in the dream she was sprinting across the same cracked asphalt of the truck stop, lungs burning, throat raw. The sky was a thick, heavy red, the kind of color that didn't look like sunset but like injury, like infection. The buildings sagged and leaned, stretching into lopsided silhouettes like melting wax. The shadows were wrong. They moved without light. They reached for her. And there were footprints, fresh ones, wet and shining on the ground. They weren't human. They were long, bent in the middle, as though something with joints bending the wrong direction had stepped there moments before. She didn't know where she was running to, but she knew absolutely what she was running from. The whispers. Always those whispers. Not words. Just breath. Just sound. Just wanting. Wanting her. She didn't dare look back. But she felt them creeping along her spine, something cold brushing the back of her neck like fingertips. When she stumbled, something clicked nearby, like claws tapping pavement. Then a voice behind her whispered, "Shannon." She snapped awake with a strangled gasp. Her cab was freezing. Her breath fogged in the air. The engine was off. She had fallen asleep with it idling, heat running full blast. She did this every winter. She was disciplined with fuel and mileage, but she never gambled with the cold. Not out here in the emptiness of the high desert nights. But now it was silent. Completely dead. Her dashboard lights weren't just off, they were dark. Lifeless. She tried the ignition. Nothing. Not even a click. It was as though the battery had been torn out. "Come on," she whispered, slapping the steering wheel. "Not now. Don't do this now." The darkness outside her windshield looked heavier than before, like something with weight and texture. The truck stop was still. No wind. No motion. No life. Shannon swallowed hard. Then she saw them. Footprints. Not in the dirt, not on the sand, on the inside of her windshield. Elongated, smeared, fogged prints, as though something with a long hand and too many joints had pressed its palm against the glass, traced down it, and dragged its fingers across while she slept. Shannon's bone marrow turned to ice. "Hell no," she whispered, grabbing her coat. She shoved her door open and nearly slammed it behind her, but she froze halfway. Under the door. In the thin strip of dirt lit by her dome light. There were footprints there too. The same kind. Leading away from her truck. Leading toward the old convenience store. The one that was supposed to be abandoned. Except the lights were on now. Faint. Flickering. Sickly white. Shannon stepped backward so fast she nearly tripped. Her pulse was hammering so hard she felt it in her teeth. She fumbled for her phone to call the sheriff again. Her lock screen flashed on. 3:17 a.m. And she had a new voicemail. From the sheriff. Hands shaking, she hit play. At first nothing. No voice. Just static. Thick and slow like syrup. Then. "Shannon, don't go inside, don't go where they call you." The static deepened, becoming a wet gurgle. "They see you." The voicemail cut out. A sound slipped through the stillness of the lot. A low creaking. A door's hinges. The store's front door was opening. The lights inside flickered harder, stuttering like a dying heartbeat. And then she heard it. Her name. Whispered from inside. Not shouted. Not spoken. Whispered, with breath so cold she felt it even outside her truck. "Shannon." She stumbled back toward her truck, but when she grabbed the door handle, her fingers brushed something warm. A handprint. A new one. Pressed into the metal. Fresh. The size of it made her bile rise. It was enormous, nearly the size of a dinner plate, with two long fingers ending in tips that had scratched the paint. Whatever it was had touched her truck minutes ago. Maybe seconds. Her instinct screamed at her, "Get to another driver. Now." Shannon sprinted across the lot toward the one other truck still parked at the far end. An old red Kenworth, engine humming low, heater rumbling. The cab lights glowed warm orange. Thank God. Someone was awake. She rushed to the passenger side and banged on the door. Hey! Hey, can you open up? My truck died, I need help, please. Footsteps thudded inside the cab. Good. Someone was coming. The curtain shifted. Then a face appeared. Her breath stopped mid-inhale. The man's eyes were hollow. Not black, empty. His mouth hung open slightly, jaw slack as though something inside him had forgotten how to move it. He blinked, but the blink was too slow, deliberate, wrong. When his lips moved, they didn't shape the word right. They didn't shape any word right. His voice came out stretched. Distorted. Shannon. She screamed, backing away so fast her legs tangled. She hit the ground hard, palms scraping. She scrambled up, heartbeat strobing in her vision. The man inside the truck tilted his head mechanically, like a broken puppet. His neck bent too far. Joints cracked. They want to meet you, he rasped. Shannon bolted. She didn't look back. Didn't dare. She sprinted toward the only structure nearby she knew had possible cover, the diner attached to the gas pumps. The windows were dark, the neon sign dead, but at least it was a building with walls and a lockable door. Her boots slapped pavement. Her breath tore in and out. The air felt heavier with every step. Halfway across the lot, the ground trembled. Just once. Like something heavy had stepped out of the desert behind her. Then again. Slow. Rhythmic. Coming closer. Shannon didn't stop running until she slammed into the diner's front door shoulder first. It didn't budge. Locked. No, 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 she whispered, pounding on the glass. Come on, open. Something moved behind her. She didn't hear it. She felt it. The air behind her compressed, like a massive shape had entered the space she occupied. Her brain screamed at her not to turn around. Her hands fumbled along the edge of the door. She felt metal. A key box. Locked with a simple push-button code. She didn't know the code. Her fingers shook uncontrollably, slapping random numbers. Behind her. A breath. Deep. Inhuman. It wasn't a growl. It wasn't a hiss. It was an inhale. Like something was smelling her. She pressed the last button and yanked the box open. Keys spilled into her shaking hands. She grabbed one at random. Shoved it into the lock. Turned. Something massive exhaled behind her, hot and damp. The door clicked open. She dove inside and slammed it behind her. She locked it. Deadbolt. Chain. Then she collapsed against the door, chest heaving, tears slipping down her face without permission. The thing outside didn't try the handle. It didn't bang. It didn't even scratch. It just stood there. Breathing. Slow. Wet. Hungry. She could hear it. She could feel it vibrating the glass. And then, after what felt like a full minute, it walked away. But not toward the desert. Toward the store. Toward the flickering lights. Toward the place whispering her name. Shannon crawled backward until her spine hit a booth. She curled into the corner and clamped her hands over her mouth, sobbing silently. Her teeth chattered with terror. She stayed that way for a long time, until her breathing finally calmed enough for her to think. Her phone buzzed. Another voicemail. From the sheriff. Her blood froze. With trembling hands, she pressed play. Static again. But beneath the static was something else. A voice buried in it. Softer. Desperate. Shannon, if you're still alive, don't trust the lights, don't trust voices that sound like me. Static swelled. I didn't call you. The static cut off abruptly. Silence. Then a new voice whispered directly into her ear. From behind her. But I did. Shannon didn't breathe. She didn't scream. She didn't move. That whisper, right behind her, hadn't brushed her ear like a normal voice. It slithered into her mind, bypassing sound altogether, as if someone had leaned in and whispered inside the space behind her eyes. Her blood iced over. Slowly, terrified to see what waited, Shannon turned her head. Nothing. Just the dim diner interior. Rows of chipped booths. Dusty linoleum. A long counter lined with empty stools. Everything covered in a thin gray film, untouched for years. Her breath returned, shaky and uneven. She forced herself to stand, legs wobbling. Get a grip, she whispered to herself. You're alone. You're just scared. That's all. Just scared. But that wasn't true. Something had followed her. Something had whispered to her. And something huge had stood outside the door. She took a slow, deep breath and scanned the diner. That's when she noticed the clocks. 3 of them, one above the counter, one near the kitchen door, one on the wall by the front windows. All frozen. All stuck on the exact same time. 3:17 a.m. The time her voicemail had arrived. The time the store lights had turned on. The time her truck died. A cold pressure tightened inside her ribs. When she looked away from the clocks and then back again. The hands had moved. They now pointed to 3:18. Just 1 minute. Just one tiny, insignificant minute. But they had moved together. Perfectly synchronized. Her pulse ratcheted higher. Her brain whispered, nothing mechanical moves like that. Nothing old. Nothing unplugged. Every hair on her arms lifted. Okay, she murmured, backing away. Not looking at the clocks anymore. She pressed herself against a booth, trying to steady her breathing. Her thoughts were running ahead of her, spiraling. You're trapped. You're losing it. You're hearing voices. You're talking to yourself. No, she whispered harshly. Stop. You're not losing your mind. But she didn't feel convinced by her own voice. Something shifted in the booth across from her. Not loudly. Just a soft indentation. Like someone sitting down. The cushion sagged. She saw it sag. She bit back a scream and pressed against the wall. Who's there? She whispered, voice cracking. The cushion rose again, as if the invisible weight stood up. A faint series of footsteps padded across the floor. Soft, but unmistakable. Shannon's breath caught in her throat. They walked behind the counter. The swinging door to the back kitchen creaked open. Slowly. Deliberately. And then it shut. Gently. Like someone easing it closed. Shannon clamped a hand over her mouth. Tears burned her eyes. This wasn't just paranormal. This was smart. This was aware. This was intentional. She found her voice, barely. Why are you doing this? She whispered to the empty room. A soft ringing sound answered her. Like a rotary phone. An old one. It came from the far corner of the diner, an ancient wall-mounted phone, beige plastic yellowed with age. It was ringing. Not shrilly. Not loudly. But faint. Steady. Insistent. Re-eyeing, re-eyeing, re-eyeing. Shannon stared at it. "No," she said. "I'm not touching that." The ringing cut off. A voice poured from the receiver. Not through the speaker. Through the air. As though someone was speaking through the disconnected phone's missing breath. "Shannon, pick up." Her heart exploded against her ribs. She backed away, knocking into a table. Silverware rattled and jumped, slid, toward her as though nudged by invisible fingers. She scrambled away from it. The phone began to ring again, louder this time. Re-eyeing. 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 Her ears rang with it. Re-eyeing. Her throat tightened, and she grabbed her head. "Stop," she shouted. "Stop it. Stop." The ringing cut off instantly. Silence. Then. "Look behind you." The voice didn't come from the phone this time. It came from the diner speakers mounted in the ceiling, dead speakers, coated in dust, disconnected from any power. Shannon froze. Every muscle locked. She didn't want to turn. Her body screamed not to. But slowly, trembling uncontrollably, she turned her head. The diner's front windows were fogged. Covered. Every inch. And there, in the fog, drawn by a long finger, was a message. "We saw you sleep." Her knees almost buckled. Hands shaking violently, she backed into the counter. She needed to think. Needed to breathe. Needed to. Something knocked on the glass. 3 slow taps. She squeezed her eyes shut. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Another 3 taps. When she opened her eyes, there were handprints on the window. Dozens. Pressed against the glass. Flat. Long. Bent wrong. They were appearing one by one, like invisible hands pressing into the fog from outside. Something was gathering. Not one thing. Many. Tears streamed down Shannon's cheeks. I need to get out of here," she whispered. She backed toward the counter, then toward the kitchen door. She grabbed a metal spatula, stupid, useless, but it felt like something, and pushed through into the back kitchen. The instant she crossed the threshold, a wave of nausea hit her. The air in the kitchen was thick, stale, suffocating. It smelled like damp concrete and old grease and something else. Rot. The smell of something that had decayed a long, long time ago, but never fully died. She gagged, covering her mouth. The kitchen looked frozen in time. Pots still on the stove. A half-finished order slip dangling from the rail above the pass-through window. A coffee mug turned on its side, the stain long dried to a brown crust. But something wasn't right. Her eyes adjusted. And she realized the shadows were gently swaying. Not in sync with the light. Not in sync with her movement. Swaying like bodies hanging from a ceiling. Her breath hitched. She stepped back. Her boot touched something soft. She spun around. A chair. Just a chair. Relief rushed through her, leaving her dizzy. She forced herself toward the back exit, hoping, praying, it wasn't locked or blocked. She grabbed the handle. Pulled. The door didn't budge. She pulled again. It didn't even rattle. Like it wasn't a door at all. She pressed her hand to it. Cold metal. But no hinges. No seams. Her heart lurched into her throat. It wasn't a door anymore. It was part of the wall. She stumbled backward, choking on panic. What's happening? The overhead fluorescent light flickered. Once. Twice. Then went out. Darkness swallowed her. Absolute, crushing darkness. Shannon froze as something moved in the black. Not small. Not subtle. Something big. Something that scraped the floor as it shifted. Her breathing became ragged. In the pitch darkness, a voice whispered, impossibly close, brushing her cheek. They can make you see anything, even doors. She screamed, swinging the spatula wildly. It hit nothing but empty air. Another whisper, this time behind her ear. There are no doors here anymore. Her mind cracked under the pressure. No, stop, stop, she cried, slamming her back against a wall, sliding down to the floor. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She fumbled, grabbing it like a lifeline. The screen glowed, so bright after the darkness that it made her eyes water. Another voicemail. The sheriff. She didn't want to hear it. She needed to hear it. With shaking hands, she pressed play. Static. Then the sheriff's voice, strained, terrified. Shannon, don't believe what you see, don't believe anything inside the place. A heavy thud echoed in the background, followed by a dragging sound. Then the sheriff screamed. Something wet squelched. The voicemail ended. Her phone light flickered and died. She was plunged back into suffocating darkness. The whisper came again, closer than before. So close she felt the shape of lips near her ear. He didn't leave that message. Darkness pressed so tightly around Shannon that she felt it like weight, like hands, like something alive leaning against her ribcage. She couldn't see her own hands. Couldn't see the kitchen around her. Couldn't see anything at all, except faint, shifting shapes behind her eyelids when she blinked. Almost like something was moving in the dark, but too slowly for her eyes to catch. Her breath came shallow. The spatula clattered from her trembling hand. Something brushed her ankle. Very lightly. A fingertip. Shannon jerked her leg up with a strangled gasp. Her mind raced. That's not a door. That's not the sheriff. That voice wasn't real. That whisper wasn't human. You're trapped. You're losing it. You're trapped. You're losing it. No, she rasped, pressing her back against the cold metal counter. Don't think. Don't think. Just breathe. Just. A voice cut her off. Her own voice. Not beside her. Not behind her. Inside the dark. Shannon. Her heart stopped. The voice sounded exactly like her, tone, breath, fear, but not coming from her. Her throat tightened until she couldn't swallow. Who's there? She whispered. The voice answered, soft and familiar and impossible. You know me, Shannon. You've always known me. Cold crawled up her spine. The voice stepped closer. She couldn't hear footsteps, not exactly, but she heard the space change, like the air moved to make room for something. We've talked before, her own voice murmured. Not with words. Not like this. But we've talked. Her shaking hand searched along the counter for anything she could use as a weapon. Her fingers brushed metal, knife handle. She gripped it tight. Her pulse hammered. Stay away, she whispered, though her voice cracked like brittle glass. A soft laugh echoed in her own voice. A laugh she recognized from memories she wished she could forget, lonely nights on the road, laughing at herself just to keep from crying. You're scared of me, it asked gently. Why? I'm you. No, Shannon said, forcing air into her lungs. No, you're not. The darkness rippled. A shape leaned closer. She could feel it, though she couldn't see it. "Don't lie," her own voice breathed. "We have the same breath." Shannon choked on terror. Her thoughts spun faster, disjointed, cracking at the edges. What if you really are losing it? What if none of this is real? What if you're talking to yourself in the dark? What if the diner was empty all along? Something warm and wet touched her cheek. Like a fingertip. Her whole body seized. The voice whispered. "I remember what it felt like, you know. When you cried last night. Alone in the cab. Thinking about how nobody checks in on you anymore." Shannon shook her head violently. "Stop it. You didn't tell anyone where you were," it said softly. "You didn't want them to worry. You didn't want them to think you were weak. Stop." But the voice kept going, calm, intimate, surgical. "You chose this life because it lets you disappear. And now something finally noticed you missing." Shannon clamped both hands over her ears. But the voice came anyway. Inside her skull. Not muffled. Not distant. Close. "I'm the part of you that knows the truth, Shannon. Nobody's coming." Her breath broke. Her hand slipped from her ears. Silence followed for several long, trembling seconds. Then her voice, except hollow, stretched, wrong, whispered through the dark. "You should look at me." "No," Shannon whispered. "Just look." I said no. "Shannon." Something touched her chin. A thumb. Firm, cold. Lifting her face. Forcing her head forward. Even in darkness she knew, it was holding her face. It was moving her. "Let go of me," she whispered weakly. "Open your eyes." She hadn't even realized she'd squeezed them shut. Her lashes trembled. "No." "Open them." Her eyes snapped open. The darkness in the kitchen shifted, just slightly, but enough for her to see a silhouette in front of her. A human shape. Exactly her height. Exactly her posture. Exactly her outline. Her breath froze. The silhouette stepped closer. And closer. Until its face was inches from hers. She stared into the dark where its eyes should have been. And it stared back. With her own stillness. Her own breath. Her own shape. What are you?" she whispered. The silhouette moved its head in a slow, precise copy of hers. "I'm what you become if you stay," it whispered. Her shoulders shook violently. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She couldn't blink. The silhouette raised a hand, the knife dropped from her hand. Clattered across the tile. Echoed too loudly. Her pulse thundered. The lights flickered again, but stayed on. She stared across the kitchen, vision trembling. Nothing. No silhouette. No figure. No reflection. No shadow. Just the empty kitchen. Just the rotten smell. Just the oppressive quiet. And something else. Her eyes widened. There were footprints on the floor. Not the long, bent ones from outside. These were human-sized. Barefoot. Identical. Leading from the center of the room. To where she had been standing. And then stopping. Right in front of her. Her stomach twisted. Were those hers? Did she do that? Did she walk there? Did she forget? Her mind recoiled at the possibility. She took a step backward. A single fluorescent bulb popped overhead. Glass sprinkled the counter. Then another. Pop. 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 One by one the lights blew out until only a single flickering bulb remained above the preparation table. It buzzed loudly, struggling to stay alive. Shannon grabbed the counter to steady herself. Tears blurred her vision. "Please," she whispered to anything that might listen. I just want this to stop." The last light flickered. Dimmed. Then stabilized. For now. An idea rose up through the panic. The phones. The sheriff's voicemail. The distorted voice. What if the real sheriff was still alive? What if he never made those calls? She grabbed her phone again, battery at 7%. Not much time. But enough to call 911. Her thumb hovered over the button. A voice spoke from behind the walk-in cooler. Not a whisper. Firm. Male. Human. Shannon. Her phone slipped from her hand and clattered across the tile. Her heartbeat went berserk. "Sheriff," she breathed, hope and terror tangling together. Another voice answered. The same man's voice, identical, but this time sounding further away. "Shannon. If you can hear me, say something." Her blood ran cold. Two voices. One close. One far. One real. One wrong. She backed toward the counter. The closer voice spoke again, gentle, reassuring, familiar. Too familiar. "It's okay. You're safe. Come to me." Shannon shook her head violently. "No. Sheriff, if that's you, tell me something only you said to me earlier." The faraway voice crackled with panic. "Shannon, don't trust anything that sounds like me." The close voice chuckled softly. Soft. Wet. Amused. "He can't help you anymore." Shannon screamed and sprinted toward the kitchen door, grabbing the handle, yanking it open. And froze. The diner was lit. Fully. Bright. Warm. Inviting. Not like before. Like nothing had ever been wrong. Like she had imagined the darkness entirely. The windows were clear. No handprints. No fog. No messages. Her truck sat outside, intact. The convenience store lights were off. Dark. Silent. The lot was empty. Completely. No movement. No figures in the night. Nothing. Everything looked normal. Her mind splintered. Was any of it real? Did she hallucinate the whole thing? Did she fall asleep, dreaming in cycles she couldn't wake from? She stepped into the diner's front room, breathing hard. The room looked exactly as it had when she'd first entered. Except for one thing. Every table, had a single napkin on it. Folded neatly. With a message written in black marker. She moved closer. Her knees almost buckled when she read it. Every napkin said the same thing. Don't trust what looks like you. And then, at the bottom. We only showed you what you already know. Her throat closed. A sound behind her, barely a breath, made her turn around. A silhouette stood in the doorway to the kitchen. Her silhouette. Exactly. It raised a hand slowly. Her hand. And pointed directly at her. "It's your turn to become real now." Shannon's breath froze as the silhouette in the doorway raised its arm, her arm, pointing directly at her. Her skin crawled, as though the light itself recoiled. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then, a slow, soft clap echoed across the diner. Clap. Clap. Not loud, but deliberate. A faint clicking of flat hands meeting, drifting somewhere between mockery and welcome. "You see it too, don't you, Shannon?" The voice was hers again, low and amused, but with a rasp like metal scraping bone. She backed away. Her hand met the counter behind her. The edge was sharp enough that pain flared up in her palm. She swallowed, fighting nausea that threatened to pull her down. Why me?" she whispered, voice raw. "Why are you doing this?" The silhouette tilted its head, a tilt that felt too mechanical to be human. "Why?" it echoed. "Because you're the only kind who can hear the silence. The only kind who listens between heartbeats." Her pulse hammered so loud she thought the world must be trembling with it. She glanced around, the diner, the booths, the tables with their ominous napkins. The clean kitchen door behind her. The windows, empty and clear. A cold sense of dread washed over her. Something about this room had changed. The air smelled different. Less rot. Less decay. Less history. More clean plastic and cold metal. Too sterile. Too new. As if everything had been scrubbed. Washed. Reset. So, the silhouette raised her free hand, curling fingers as though beckoning. "Do you want to go home?" Shannon's instinct howled at her, "Don't answer. Don't move." But her body betrayed her, her throat worked and breathed out a whisper. "Yes," she said. "Good." The silhouette stepped aside, toward the far window. Outside, snow drifted lazily in a shaft of weak moonlight. Cold, empty, silent. No vehicle. No semi. No lights. Then walk. Shannon didn't hesitate. Her legs were lead, her feet felt slow. But she moved. Each step sounded loud in the hush of the diner. She reached the window. Pushed the glass tentatively. It was cold. Frosted. She pressed her hands flat against it. Outside, the world looked normal, nothing creeping, nothing lurking, but something felt wrong. Off. The silhouette drifted closer behind her. "Don't turn around," it whispered. She didn't, not on purpose. Instead, she tilted her head slightly. Just enough to glimpse its reflection in the window glass. Her own face stared back, pale and drawn. Behind it, barely visible, a shape, tall, too tall, limbs too long, a face too blank. She blinked. The image was gone. A fingernail scratched the glass. Slow. Patient. Shannon jerked away, stumbling. She tried the door handle. It opened. The night air, raw, noxious, alive, rushed in, carrying with it the taste of iron and old snow. She didn't pause. She ran. She didn't remember how she got to the highway. Didn't remember climbing into her truck. Didn't remember fumbling the keys. Every memory between the door and ignition was fractured. But when the engine roared, the headlights cut through the night like twin knives. The world outside was unchanged, snow, darkness, nothing but the emptiness of rural miles. It felt like escape. It felt like everything would be over. But the road was wrong. Shannon recognized the layout, the gentle curves, the forested edges, the distant hills, but they were mirrored. Backwards. She passed trees that should have been behind her. Past road signs she didn't recognize. Mile markers counted down instead of up. The snow fell horizontally, even though there was no wind. Her breath fogged inside the cab, forming icy patterns on the windows. And something scratched at the glass, faint, fingertip light. She peeled her eyes away, slammed a hand over the windshield. "Stop," she choked out. The radio crackled, static at first, then a voice, soft and distorted. "Miss me." The voice matched the distorted echo she had heard in the diner, but thinner. Hollow. And it sounded pleased. Shannon snapped the radio off. Silence returned. But inside her head, the whisper remained. "You can never leave." She pressed her forehead against the steering wheel. The cold from the metal seared through her jacket and into her skin. She closed her eyes, just for a second, and tried to steady her breathing. When she opened them again, the highway was gone. She was back at the entrance to the lot of the truck stop, the same cracked asphalt, the same pump islands, the same old sign, except the sign glowed fully now. Bright. Neon. "Welcome to Universal Truck Stop Exit 34. Something in her gut twisted, fear. Rage. Recognition. Her radio began to hiss, slowly at first, then rising in pitch, like a scream held in a tin can. "Welcome back, Shannon," the static roared. Headlights flickered on the lot. One by one, vehicles' lights flicked to life, the red Kenworth, the semi, other trucks she hadn't even noticed before. All pointed in her direction. All waiting. Shannon wanted to run. She wanted to fight. She wanted to throw the truck in gear and floor it. Anything to escape. But her body refused. It was freezing. So cold she couldn't feel her limbs. So cold she couldn't remember how to move them. She unclipped her seatbelt, slow, carefully, so as not to alert whatever watched her. The door handle popped. She opened the door. The steel floor was icy under her boots. Snow drifted over it, thin and unnatural, like someone had painted frost just for her. She stepped out. The lot lights pulsed. The semi's horn sounded, a low, trembling moan that ended in a quiet sigh. Then a voice, a crowd of voices, chanting. "Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back." Shannon swallowed, dry. Her vision blurred. But in the swirl of snow and light, she spotted movement, shadows shimmering near the pumps, near the diner, near the old motel annex. Shapes flickering in and out of existence. Figures too slim, too tall, too wrong, echoing forms of men and women, but twisted. All staring at her. All waiting for her. A figure detached itself from the cluster. Walked slowly toward her. It wore a uniform, the same the attendant had worn. Its face was blank, except for the eyes, two large, black holes leaking darkness. She tried to back up. Her legs felt heavy. Her breath frozen. The figure opened its mouth. No words came. Only static. From the horn came laughter, not cruel, not mocking, just hollow, distant, waiting. The figure reached out a hand, long, bent fingers curling toward her. Shannon closed her eyes. A scream cracked in her throat. And the world gone black again. When she opened her eyes, she was inside her Tacoma. The seatbelt clicked as she buckled it fast. Her hands shook so hard she could barely grip the wheel. The engine idled. The headlights cast long beams onto cracked asphalt. She exhaled. Concrete warmth seeped into her chest. Was she safe? She tilted her head, no windows lit up. No figures. No lights. No snow. Just the empty quiet of a truck lot at night. For a moment she thought she could breathe, could cry, could move. Then the radio crackled behind her. Soft. Subtle. A whisper. Not yet. Shannon's blood froze. The cab lights flickered. In the rearview mirror, faint, barely visible, someone was standing. Not turning. Not moving. Just standing. Watching. She shut her eyes tight. Tried to scream. But it was too late. Because even if she ran again, it would follow. Because somewhere in that lot, in that empty highway night, the line between her reflection and herself had blurred. And now, it was waiting for her to forget who she was. The headlights of a passing semi slid across the diner windows like a white blade, and Shannon flinched. It wasn't that anything unusual happened when trucks went by. In fact, that was proof she wasn't completely cut off from the world, but each time the light streaked across the window glass, they carved momentary silhouettes in the reflection. And sometimes those silhouettes looked like things that weren't in the room. Things that leaned too close behind her. Things that stared. She forced herself to breathe. The diner was empty now except for her, the humming fluorescent lights, and the long smear of her fingerprints on the counter where she'd been anxiously rubbing the laminate. Outside, the storm had rolled in fast, swallowing the distant horizon in a wall of black clouds without moon or stars behind them. The truck stop existed now in a small island of trembling light surrounded by total, breathing darkness. Shannon had the unsettling feeling that the dark was waiting. She checked the clock above the coffee machines again. Only 3 minutes had passed. It felt like 30. She needed something to do, something to stop her mind from replaying the last few hours, the figure in the parking lot, the static in the radio, the shadow that hadn't been a shadow at all. The way the gas pump had felt like it was breathing. The voice that had whispered her name even though she'd been alone. She rose from the stool and paced toward the hallway leading to the restrooms and the back storage rooms. Maybe there were more clues back there. Maybe there were reasons, explanations, something physical she could latch onto before this whole situation started to eat her alive from the inside. She paused halfway down the dark corridor. The floor tiles were dull cream, scuffed by years of boots and shoes. But the second tile on the right side had darkened, like someone had spilled water there. Or oil. Or blood long ago that had seeped into the grout. When she stepped toward it, her shoe sank slightly. The tile flexed under her weight. Her pulse jumped. It wasn't supposed to do that. Floor tiles didn't breathe under pressure. She crouched closer, pulled out her phone, and used the flashlight. The tile wasn't flexing. Something beneath it was. A shape. A bulge. Like a hand pressing upward from the other side. Shannon scrambled back, her spine slamming against the wall. The light flicked across the tile again, but this time it was flat and unmoving, as though nothing at all had happened. Her breath hitched. Maybe she was tired. Maybe stress was eroding her sense of reality. Psychological strain could cause hallucinations, she knew that, she'd lived that. But stress didn't make floor tiles swell like skin stretched over bone. She kept moving, this time more carefully, more aware of the subtle sounds around her, the hum of the lights, the ticking of cooling metal outside, the occasional sizzle of the coffee maker adjusting its heating element. But beneath it all was something else. A murmur. Soft. Almost too soft to hear. Like a whispering conversation leaking through the walls. She slowed down, leaned closer to the painted drywall. The voices were faint but layered, dozens of them, overlapping. She could only make out a few single words. Help. Wait. No, don't. Shannon. She stiffened. The sound of her name in that quiet, gurgling whisper rooted her to the spot. She pressed her ear closer, trying to determine if it was a trick of her mind or something external. The voices suddenly fell silent. And then, in a low rasp, as though spoken by someone whose throat had been torn open. You hear us now. Shannon jerked away from the wall, heart hammering so hard it made her vision throb. She stumbled backward until her shoulder hit the restroom door. She shoved it open and slipped inside, needing a barrier, any barrier, between her and that hallway. Inside, the restroom felt too cold. The fluorescent light flickered with a low, buzzing hum. She looked under the stalls, empty. She exhaled shakily and approached the sink to splash water on her face. Her reflection looked exhausted. Pale. Wide-eyed. Behind her reflection, another face formed. Shannon screamed and spun around, but no one was there. The cold air thickened around her like invisible fingers brushing against her skin. She faced the mirror again, expecting the reflection to show her alone. But it didn't. The reflection showed the restroom door behind her. And the door was slowly swinging shut. Even though, in real life, it was fully closed. Shannon's breath trembled as she approached the mirror, raising her hand. Her reflection mimicked her, but something was wrong. Her reflection's fingers were a fraction too long. The shadows beneath its eyes were darker. Its expression was too still. "I'm losing it," she whispered to herself. Her reflection didn't whisper it with her. It smiled instead. Shannon stumbled away, panic surging in her throat. She bolted from the restroom, needing to get back to the front, needing light and sound and distance from whatever was happening in this cursed hallway. But as soon as she turned the corner to the dining area, she froze. All the lights were off. Every bulb, every neon sign, every fluorescent fixture, dark. The only illumination came from the faint red glow of the exit sign above the front door, like a dying ember hanging in the air. Shannon tried the hallway light switch. Nothing. She tried her phone flashlight again, but the screen had gone black, even though she knew it had plenty of battery remaining. "Please," she whispered into the dark. "Please don't do this." Something moved in the dining area. Not footsteps, more like the dragging of fabric across the vinyl booth cushions. A slow, deliberate shift of weight. She took a hesitant step forward. "Who's there?" Her voice cracked. I'm not playing around." A scraping sound came from the far left side of the room, a booth seat sliding as though someone were standing up from it very slowly. Shannon's eyes strained against the dim red light. Shapes formed in the blackness, the outlines of tables, chairs, the counter. But one shape didn't match. One shape was taller. Broader. Standing completely still. Watching her. Her breath caught. And then the shape stepped forward with a soft, wet sound, as though its feet weren't quite solid on the floor. It came closer, its form gaining detail, a torso hunched, arms long enough that the fingertips nearly brushed the floor, head tilted unnaturally to one side. Shannon staggered backward, hands groping for something, anything to defend herself with. The thing spoke. But its voice wasn't a voice, it was static. The sound of a detuned radio leaking out syllables like broken teeth. Shesha, NNN, Un. Her name. The pitch warped, the sound bending through the air. She ran. She didn't think, she simply bolted, careening down the hallway, past the flexing tile, past the whispering wall, bursting into the storage room at the far end. She slammed the door shut and latched it, chest heaving. The room was colder than the rest of the building. Shelves lined the walls, stacked with old cleaning supplies, dusty boxes, and plastic-wrapped paper towels. At the back of the room was a metal hatch with a padlock on it, some kind of access to the crawl space or plumbing crawlway. Her flashlight flickered. A thud hit the door behind her. She jumped back with a gasp. Then another thud. And then a dragging sound down the length of the door, like claws tracing along metal. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst. The dragging stopped. Silence followed, a thick, muffled silence. Shannon waited, holding her breath, praying it would go away. Then, a sound from behind her. "How do you know you're real?" She staggered toward the opposite wall, clutching the metal shelving to keep her balance. The air vibrated with that voice, her voice, echoing in the back of her skull. Tap. 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 Her own voice, pleading. "Let me out, Shannon." Her breathing grew shallow. Her vision blurred. Her mind spun like a top on the edge of a table, ready to fall. She squeezed her eyes shut. "I'm real," she whispered shakily to herself. "I'm real. I'm real. I'm." The metal hatch screeched as something inside began pushing against it. Hard. She backed up against the shelves, eyes wide, heart ice cold. The padlock rattled. The hinges creaked. The thing in the hatch pushed again, harder this time, the metal bowing outward. Cracks formed along the edges. Her own voice, the one trapped behind the metal, screamed. "Let me out, Shannon." And the hatch buckled. The hatch bowed outward with a metallic groan so deep it vibrated through the shelves and up Shannon's spine. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. The padlock clattered violently as something behind the metal shoved against it again, harder, angrier. Shannon backed into the far corner of the storage room, gripping the shelf beside her like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to reality. "Please," she whispered, voice shaking. "Please don't open." But the thing behind the hatch didn't listen. It spoke again with a voice identical to hers, perfect in tone, pitch, breath, everything. "Shannon." The voice trembled. Soft. Human. Terrified. "Why won't you help me?" The hatch jerked. A hinge snapped loose and clattered to the floor. Shannon screamed and pressed her back to the wall. "That's not me," she whispered to herself. "It's not me, it's not." The voice behind the hatch shifted. It grew deeper. More guttural. Like her vocal cords had turned to wet gravel. "Let me out." The padlock tore free. The hatch slammed open. But nothing crawled out. Nothing grabbed her. Instead, the crawl space beyond the metal door yawned open into sheer blackness. A cold draft poured out, smelling faintly of earth and something older, the scent of a place sealed away for years. Shannon waited. Silence. She took a shaky step closer. Maybe nothing was there. Maybe. A hand emerged from the darkness. It was pale. Too pale. The fingers were long and thin, the nails cracked and blackened. The skin looked almost translucent, like it had never seen daylight. The hand gripped the floor. Then another. Something began to crawl out, slowly, like it had been waiting centuries for the chance to stretch. The shape that followed wasn't her. Not exactly. It had her outline. Her height. Her hair. Her face, almost. But the eyes were wrong. Too large. Too dark. Too hollow. Like two deep holes bored straight into a starving soul. The creature wearing her face smiled, revealing teeth too sharp and too many. It whispered with her voice. "You left me alone in the dark." Shannon stumbled back, heart quaking in her chest. The thing crawled fully into the room, its limbs bending at odd angles, joints cracking one by one as if adjusting to the shape it wore. It stood slowly, head tilting in a jerking motion, listening to her heartbeat thundering across the tiny space. "Don't come closer," Shannon choked out. Her voice trembled. The creatures did not. "Why?" it asked, almost gently. "We're the same." "We're not," she whispered. "You think you're real." The creature stepped closer. "We think you're not." Shannon backed into the shelves so hard a box toppled off and burst open at her feet. Plastic-wrapped napkins spilled everywhere. Her breathing quickened. Her lungs felt too small. The creature's head tilted farther, almost upside down now. She lied to you, Shannon. Shannon froze. What? The woman in the mirror. Her skin turned cold as ice. You looked at her. You saw the difference. Its smile widened. And you knew she wasn't the one pretending. No, Shannon whispered. No, that wasn't. She looked more real than you do. Shannon shook her head violently. Tears stung her eyes. I'm real, she said. I know who I am. The creature's expression softened almost sympathetically. That's what she said too. A cold shiver sliced down her back. Something clattered behind her, the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Heavy ones. The creature twisted toward the noise, its spine bending like a puppet's pulled too tightly. Its face split into a grotesque grin. He's coming, it whispered. Who? Shannon asked, voice thin. The creature leaned close enough that cold air brushed her cheek. The one who watches the roads. Shannon's stomach flipped. The creature shambled backward toward the crawl space, limbs cracking as it moved. Run, Shannon, it said softly. Or he'll put you where he put me. And then, horrifyingly fluid, it pulled itself back into the crawl space, disappearing into the dark as though melting into it. The hatch swung slowly shut on its own, the metal screeching softly as it sealed the blackness inside. The footsteps in the hallway grew closer. Heavy. Deliberate. Human. Or close enough. Shannon backed toward the far wall and grabbed the nearest thing she could find, a metal broom handle. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped it. The footsteps stopped right outside the storage room door. Silence. Then a voice, gravelly, masculine, roughened by either age or smoke or something far worse. Miss. Shannon froze. The doorknob slowly turned. I heard someone screaming in here, the voice said. You okay? Shannon's heart galloped. That sounded human. Too human. But in this place, everything seemed human until it wasn't. The door creaked open a few inches. A tall silhouette loomed in the gap, broad shoulders, heavy boots, a trucker's vest. His face was still hidden in shadow. Shannon raised the broom handle shakily. Don't come in here. The men stopped. Whoa now, he said gently. I'm not here to hurt you. I work here. Shannon blinked. You work here? Yes, ma'am. A faint, warm chuckle. Name's Bill. I'm the night mechanic. Usually in the garage out back. A mechanic made sense. Someone who might have not been inside when everything went dark. Someone who worked late shifts. Someone who could have missed all the insanity that already happened. Shannon swallowed hard, lowering the broom just slightly. Are the lights out in the whole place? She asked. Yeah, Bill said. Storm knocked out the main breakers. I'm trying to get the generator online. She hesitated. His tone was calm. Normal. Grounded. Real. Come on, Bill said softly. Let's get you out of this closet. The door opened wider. The dim emergency light in the hallway washed over the man's face. He looked ordinary. Rugged. Grain beard. Oil-stained hands. Kind eyes. He extended one hand to her. Shannon almost reached for it. But then she froze. His shadow on the floor was wrong. It lagged behind his movement by half a second. And when the shadow's hand extended, the fingers were too long. Too thin. Almost translucent. Shannon felt ice water pour through her chest. Bill smiled warmly, a little too warmly. "Come on, sweetheart," he said. "We'll get you fixed up." Shannon raised the broom handle again. "Stay back." Bill's eyes flicked downward. He saw her fear. And the warmth drained from his face like someone pulled a plug. His voice lost its softness. Lost its humanity. "You shouldn't have seen that." He stepped into the room. His shadow crawled behind him like a separate creature. Shannon ran. She darted past him, slamming her shoulder into the doorframe and bolting down the hallway. Bill's footsteps thundered after her, fast and heavy, far too quick for a man his age. "Shannon." His voice cracked and warped. "Get back here." The hallway stretched ahead like a tunnel collapsing into darkness. Shannon sprinted toward the diner area, toward the faint red glow of the exit sign. Behind her, Bill's footsteps grew louder, faster. Shannon burst into the dining room, the lights still dead, the room swallowed in darkness. She could only see the vague outline of tables and chairs. She stumbled forward. Her foot hooked on something. She fell hard, chin slamming into the linoleum. Pain flashed white behind her eyes. She scrambled up. But not fast enough. Bill's hand caught her ankle. His grip was ice cold. "You don't belong here," he snarled, voice shredding into a demonic undertone. "You were never meant to see us." Shannon kicked wildly, heel connecting with something soft. Bill howled, grip loosening. She crawled forward desperately. Then something else moved in the darkness. Something behind Bill. Something big. A low rumbling breath filled the room. Bill froze. His grip slackened. "No," Bill whispered. "Not now." He turned slowly. And whatever he saw, he went silent. Shannon crawled beneath the table, choking back her breath, heart pounding so hard she swore the thing in the dark could hear it. A massive shape shifted behind Bill, a living shadow towering over him. Bill whispered again, trembling. "Sir, she's not one of them. She's alive." The shadow moved closer. Bill backed up, hands raised. "Sir, please." A wet, ripping sound tore through the dark. Bill's scream was short. Cut off. Gurgled. Something heavy hit the floor. Shannon pressed her hand over her mouth to stop the sound escaping her. The huge shadow turned. And she felt it. Its attention. Its hunger. Locking onto her. A deep voice, layered with 100 voices beneath it, rumbled through the room. "The roads brought you here." Shannon froze. The voice vibrated the very air. "And the roads will keep you." The shadow moved. And Shannon ran. Shannon ran blindly through the diner. The emergency exit light flickered overhead, casting brief, jagged shadows that leaped across the cracked linoleum. Her breath came in harsh, shallow gasps. Her hands scraped against tables and chairs as she zigzagged between them, trying to stay ahead of the shadow. It followed. Always following. Not fast, not slow, just inevitable. Every pulse of its movement made the air press against her skin like a cold, wet hand. She stumbled into the back hallway, where the storage room hatch had swallowed her doppelganger just minutes ago. The tiles beneath her feet flexed slightly, like something breathing beneath them. She didn't stop. Through the dim red glow of the exit sign, she saw the front door. The highway. Freedom. Almost. She yanked the door open and stepped into the night. The snow had stopped, but a thick fog rolled across the asphalt. Her headlights barely pierced it. She could barely make out her truck parked near the pumps. She ran toward it, fumbling with the keys, every step a struggle. The cold bit through her jeans and jacket. Her gloves were useless against the icy wind that seemed to carry whispers, the same distorted, overlapping voices from the walls. "Come back, stay, don't leave." She slammed the door, locked it, and fired up the engine. The headlights flared, illuminating the lot. Empty. Or so it seemed. Then she saw the shadows. Figures, tall and thin, standing among the trucks, flickering in and out of existence like candle flames. Their faces were blank, but she could feel their gaze, empty, infinite, starving. Shannon pressed the accelerator. Tires squealed against the asphalt. She barreled down the highway, but the road stretched longer than it should have, unnaturally long, curving back on itself. Every mile marker she passed counted down instead of up. Her pulse thundered. Every sense screamed at her, something wasn't right. The radio crackled to life, static spilling across the cab. Then a voice, multiple voices speaking at once, echoed through the speakers. "Welcome back, Shannon. You can't leave. The roads brought you, the roads keep you. We know you." Shannon slammed the radio off. Nothing. Silence. Her reflection in the rearview mirror caught her eye. Her face looked pale and drawn. And behind her, there, in the back seat, another figure sat. Her own figure. Shivering. Silent. Waiting. Shannon gasped, yanking the wheel. The truck skidded on ice she hadn't noticed, and the tires squealed. The reflection blinked, just like she did. Her pulse hammered. She had to escape. She had to get somewhere solid. Somewhere real. Up ahead, a dim light glowed through the fog. A roadside rest area. A gas station. Salvation. As she approached, the fog thickened. Shapes emerged, trucks, cars, all stopped, lights off. Shadows of people standing motionless beside them. They looked like they had been waiting. Watching. The voice came again, inside her head now, separate from the radio. "You belong here. You always have." Shannon slammed the brakes. The truck fishtailed. Fog swirled around the headlights, then disappeared as if swallowed by the night. And there, in the center of the lot, was a figure she recognized. Not the shadow. Not the doppelganger. It was Bill, the night mechanic. But wrong. Twisted. Limbs bent at impossible angles, his face half melted, expression smiling and screaming at the same time. Shannon, his voice fractured into multiple layers, echoing like a cavern. "You shouldn't have left. You shouldn't have run." Her stomach twisted. She realized the road behind her had vanished. The highway she had been driving on no longer existed. She was trapped in this lot, surrounded by fog and shadows and her own reflection watching her every move. The doppelganger in the back seat leaned forward, mouth opening impossibly wide. "Run." Shannon tore her eyes from the back seat and threw the truck into reverse, slamming into the nearest car. The horn blared, lights flickered, metal crunched. She spun the wheel, trying to navigate the lot, but it seemed larger than she remembered, endless. Every time she passed a vehicle, she glimpsed shadows in the windows. Moving. Watching. Waiting. Then she saw it, the figure from the hatch, the thing that had crawled from below. Taller than the trucks, impossibly thin, face her own but grotesque, limbs bending like paper. It raised one hand toward her, pointing, and whispered in a voice she knew. It's time to remember. Shannon's head pounded. She slammed her hands on the wheel. She didn't know if she was awake. She didn't know if she was dreaming. She only knew the thing behind her in the back seat, the shadows in the lot, the figure pointing at her, all of it was real, in some way. Her heart screamed. She put the truck in drive and floored it. The fog twisted. The lot stretched endlessly. The vehicles multiplied, shadows stretching tall, hands reaching. Shannon woke with a start, gasping for air. Her hands clutched the edge of the counter in the diner's kitchen. She thought she had escaped, thought the nightmare had ended. But the chill crawling over her skin told her otherwise. The lights were dim, flickering, as if breathing. The hum of the refrigerator and coffee machines was louder than usual, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. She shook her head, trying to banish the lingering images from her mind: Bill, the doppelganger, the shadow from the crawl space, the endless lot. She had to move. She had to get to her truck. Get out of here. Somewhere safe. Her steps were slow and cautious. The kitchen door groaned as she pushed it open. The diner appeared normal. Empty booths. Clean counters. Dust motes floating lazily in the fluorescent light. She exhaled shakily, relief mixing with lingering dread. Her truck. She had to check it. She couldn't risk walking through the lot at night unprotected. Shannon stepped outside. The cold night air hit her like a wall, sharp and biting. But the lot had changed. It stretched farther than she remembered. Endless. The pumps seemed to float in a void of darkness. Shadows clustered in the corners, tall and thin, stretching impossibly high. They didn't move, not yet, but their presence pressed down on her chest. The headlights of her truck were on. The cab door stood ajar. She froze. Someone, or something, was inside. Her hands trembled as she approached. Heart hammering in her throat, she peered into the window. The driver's seat was empty. The passenger seat, her own reflection, sat there. Pale. Shivering. Wide-eyed. But the reflection wasn't mimicking her movements. It was alive. Separate. Watching. Waiting. Shannon stumbled back. The doppelganger raised a hand. Slow. Patient. Pointing toward the far end of the lot. Go, it whispered in her voice. Why? She asked, trembling. Because it's coming, the reflection said. It knows your fear. It's always known. Shannon's breath hitched. Behind her, the lot erupted. Shadows peeled from the asphalt, crawling across the ground like liquid darkness. Figures emerged, impossibly tall, thin, limbs bending wrong, faces blank but watching. The voice that had spoken through the radio, through the walls, through the hatch, now echoed across the lot in every direction. Shannon, you cannot leave. You belong to the road. The lot keeps you. The lot remembers. The lot waits. Shannon bolted for the cab, fumbling with the door. The reflection shifted, standing now in the lot beside the passenger door. Its hand pressed against the glass, leaving a misty outline. You have to drive, it said. Drive. Don't stop. Don't look back. Shannon jumped into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and turned the key. The engine roared to life, and the headlights cut a path through the fog. The lot seemed endless now. Every direction she turned, it repeated itself. Pumps, trucks, shadows. The exit sign, faintly glowing red, appeared up ahead. Then behind her. Then ahead again. And the voice, always closer. The road brought you. The road will keep you. You are ours. Shannon gritted her teeth and pressed the accelerator. The tires skidded over the cracked asphalt. The fog thickened, and shapes moved in it, watching, whispering, stretching impossibly tall. One shadow leaped from the lot, a long-limbed figure moving unnaturally fast. Shannon swerved. The shadow screamed, or something screamed through it, a mix of static and human voices. It vanished beneath the headlights. Shannon's vision blurred. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Her reflection in the rearview mirror blinked independently, raising one hand toward her. She slammed the brakes. The lot had vanished. She was on the highway. Straight, narrow, endless. Snow drifted across the asphalt. Fog hung low. The trees along the edge leaned inward, like they were watching. And then she saw it, a truck. Old, rusted, headlights off, sitting in the middle of the road. The cab door opened. And inside, Bill. Only now his face was wrong. Twisted. His mouth stretched impossibly wide. Limbs bending. Shadows spilling from the joints. His eyes, or where they should have been, were empty black pits. Shannon, his voice echoed, layered with static and dozens of hidden whispers. You left me, and now you're here. The highway behind her disappeared. No escape. Shannon's hands gripped the wheel until her knuckles cracked. She tried to drive past the truck, but the road warped, curving impossibly, like the world itself was bending. The truck remained in front of her, growing taller, stretching across the asphalt. The shadows from the truck stop lot emerged from the fog behind her. They moved faster than humanly possible, circling, closing in. Their whispers filled her head. Stay, belong, fear. Shannon. Her reflection reached out from the rearview mirror. Mouth stretched wide, whispering her secrets, her fears, everything she tried to hide from herself. Shannon slammed her eyes shut. Screamed. And the truck behind her vanished. She opened her eyes. The highway stretched endlessly before her. Empty. Silent. Calm. Too calm. For a heartbeat, she thought she had escaped. Then the radio crackled to life. Static first, then a whisper, her voice, clear, unmistakable. You're still here. You can never leave. The rearview mirror caught movement again. The lot, the diner, the pumps, the shadows, flickered behind her, overlaying reality like a memory she could not escape. Shannon's breath came in ragged gasps. Her mind spun. The reflection in the mirror reached toward her, smiling wider and wider, until its mouth became impossibly large, a void of teeth and darkness. Her hands shook on the wheel. She pressed the accelerator. The highway vanished. She was back at the truck stop. The exit sign flickered red above the door. The lot stretched infinitely, filled with shadows, with trucks, with figures waiting. And there, standing in the middle of the lot, was the shadow that had haunted the crawl space. Tall. Thin. Faceless. Arms bending like the world itself could not contain them. It raised a hand toward her. Shannon realized, with a sick twist in her stomach. There was no escape. The lot was endless. The shadows were infinite. The road had brought her here, and it would never let her leave. And the last thing she saw before the darkness consumed her vision completely. Her reflection, stepping from the passenger seat, smiling, reaching for her, whispering. We've always been waiting. Shannon's hands shook violently on the steering wheel. The truck was parked in the middle of the lot now, a liminal space that didn't feel real. The exit sign flickered like a dying ember above the diner, casting long, distorted shadows across the asphalt. She wanted to scream, but her throat felt dry, raw, constricted. The cold wind cut through her jacket like knives. Every hair on her arms and neck stood on end. She knew the shadows were watching. Waiting. Hungry. And her reflection, it was gone from the rearview mirror. For a brief, fleeting second, Shannon felt relief. Then the sound came, a low, rumbling vibration beneath the asphalt. The lot itself was alive. The cracks in the pavement wriggled, as if they were veins pumping black liquid. The snow didn't fall. It rose, curling in spirals around the pumps, the trucks, the diner. The lot wasn't a lot anymore. It was a heart, beating slowly, methodically, alive and hungry. Shannon scrambled from the truck, eyes darting for something solid. The diner. Maybe the diner could protect her, had to protect her. She sprinted toward the door, but the asphalt beneath her feet flexed and warped. Each step she took didn't move her forward but spun her in a circle. The shadows moved, converging toward her from all directions. Tall, thin, faceless, their limbs bending in impossible ways. They whispered her name, over and over, layering her voice with dozens of others. Shannon, stay. Shannon, belong. Shannon, ours. The diner doors slammed shut on their own. The windows fogged from the inside, reflecting not the lot outside but infinite darkness. The lights inside flickered. The coffee machines hissed as if alive, and the fluorescent bulbs warped, twisting into shapes, faces, teeth, eyes that blinked with malice. Shannon's stomach turned. She pressed herself against the building, trying to catch her breath. She could feel the cold emanating from the lot, seeping through the walls like a living thing. Then she heard it, soft footsteps behind her. She spun. Nothing. But the air shifted, carrying a low, guttural whisper in her own voice. You can't run anymore. Shannon bolted toward the corner of the diner where the back alley should have been. It wasn't there. Instead, a black void stretched endlessly. The fog thickened, twisting in spirals like smoke from a funeral pyre. Figures emerged from the fog, familiar figures. Bill. Her doppelganger. The shadow from the crawl space. They weren't solid. They wavered, flickered. But their eyes, even in the dark, burned with the certainty of knowing her deepest fears. Welcome, the doppelganger said, stepping forward. Its mouth stretched wider than humanly possible. Its voice was hers, but fractured, layered with dozens of unseen tones. Shannon pressed her hands to her ears, trying to block the sound, but it entered her mind anyway. Every memory she had of the lot, the diner, the trucks, every shadow and whisper, pressed into her skull. She realized, with a sick twist, that the lot knew her. Knew every step she had taken. Every thought she had tried to suppress. Every fear. You can't hide, the shadow whispered, low and deep. The lot knows your heart. Shannon screamed, bolting forward blindly, and her foot struck a warped patch of asphalt. She stumbled, falling hard. The world shifted beneath her. The fog turned solid. Shadows surrounded her, pressing in, bending her perspective, twisting the lot into a circle that had no end. The doppelganger crouched beside her. Its eyes bore into hers. We've been waiting, it said softly. And now, so have they. The shadows rose, stretching taller and taller, their forms combining into one immense, writhing figure that eclipsed the diner. Its head bent impossibly low, reaching toward Shannon. Its voice merged with the whispers, hundreds of layered voices chanting her name, calling her, claiming her. Shannon's chest tightened. She could feel her own heartbeat, too fast, too loud, vibrating through her ribcage. Panic and fear clawed at her mind. And then she heard the roads. Not the highway, not the asphalt, the roads inside her mind. Endless, dark, and infinite, twisting through a void. Every road she had ever driven, every mile, every turn, every stop, remembered by the lot. The shadow loomed over her, and she realized, it didn't just want to trap her body. It wanted her mind. Her memory. Herself. Not me, she screamed, trying to crawl away, but the lot's asphalt now gripped her, cold and unyielding. The doppelganger leaned closer. Its voice, now terrifyingly calm, whispered. You will forget. You will belong. We are the road, the lot, the shadows. And you are ours. Shannon clawed at the ground, at the fog, at anything to escape. The massive shadow lowered its head. Its faceless gaze bore into hers. Everything went black. Shannon awoke screaming. The world was silent, too silent. Her hands were pressed into the asphalt, but it didn't feel solid. It rippled beneath her fingers like water, cold and unyielding. The diner was gone. The lot, the trucks, the exit sign, everything had vanished. She was on the road. Or at least, a version of it. Black, endless, and curving impossibly into darkness. No fog, no snow. Just darkness, stretching in every direction. Her reflection appeared on the asphalt in front of her, distorted, like melted glass. It crawled toward her, grinning wider than any human mouth could stretch. Shannon scrambled back, but the asphalt shifted under her. Each step she took brought her closer to the reflection instead of away. The voice returned, layered, inside her head. You've always belonged here, Shannon. You just didn't know it yet. Her stomach churned. Panic clawed at her chest. She tried to stand, but her legs felt like lead. She was sinking into the road itself, the black surface swallowing her up to her knees. From the darkness behind her, shadows emerged. Not just shapes, but full forms, humanoid yet wrong, limbs bending impossibly, faces blank yet grinning. They moved with fluid, inhuman grace, closing in on her from every side. Shannon's reflection laughed, a chilling sound that echoed inside her skull. Do you remember the lot? It whispered. Do you remember the diner? The crawl space? Bill. Us. Her memory surged. Every horrifying image replayed, the hatch, the shadows, the whispers, Bill's twisted face, the doppelganger in the truck, the infinite highway. The reflection knelt, hand stretching impossibly long, brushing her cheek. The touch burned. You cannot leave, it said softly. You were always ours. Shannon's eyes darted around. There was movement, roads spiraling up from the asphalt, forming impossible angles, twisting like ribbons in the void. Shadows slithered along them, waiting. Watching. Breathing. And then she saw it, a massive figure in the distance, emerging from the blackness. Taller than the sky, limbs bending wrong, face obscured by darkness, yet somehow familiar. The road beneath her shifted violently, lifting her like a wave. She was forced forward. The massive figure loomed closer. Every step shook her, rattling bones and sanity alike. The reflection whispered again. The road remembers. The lot remembers. The shadows remember. You cannot escape. You will be like us. Shannon screamed, trying to claw at the asphalt. But it was useless. The road pulled her forward, inexorable, unstoppable. The massive figure reached down. Its hand was impossibly large, engulfing her. Darkness swallowed her vision, but she felt every surface, asphalt, shadow, fog, merge into one living thing, pressing against her, wrapping her, consuming her. Her mind screamed. Her body fought. And then she felt a whisper, soft and familiar, inside her own head. "Remember who you are, Shannon. Fight." A spark of defiance flared. She kicked, clawed, and screamed. The reflection recoiled, hissing like a cornered animal. The shadows shivered, as though the road itself hesitated. Shannon's heart pounded. She had to hold on to herself, to her reality, to herself. She forced her mind to focus on one thing: the diner, the pumps, the headlights of her truck. This is real. I am real. I am Shannon. The shadows recoiled. The massive figure froze. The road quivered beneath her feet. The reflection screeched, mouth stretching impossibly wide. "You can't leave." Shannon screamed, louder than she had ever screamed before. The sound cut through the darkness, slicing the road, scattering shadows. She pulled herself forward, toward a faint glimmer in the distance. A light. The exit sign. Her truck. The diner. Everything she had thought lost. The reflection shrieked, twisting violently as if burned. It began to collapse into itself, melting into the asphalt. The massive figure shrieked too, a sound like grinding metal and screaming souls. Shannon ran, faster than she thought possible, toward the light. Her hands scraped asphalt, her knees hit the hard ground, but she didn't stop. The road behind her began to crumble, folding into darkness. Shadows vanished, dissolving into mist. The whispering voices faded, leaving only the pounding of her own heart. Finally, she reached the diner. She stumbled inside, panting, hands trembling. The fluorescent lights flickered back on. The coffee machine hissed normally. The lot outside was empty. Silent. Real. For the first time in hours, she could breathe. But even as relief surged, a tiny voice whispered from somewhere deep inside the diner. "We've been waiting." Shannon froze. And she knew, deep down, that the lot would never truly let her go.